Welcome to The Big Picture Live, the show about picture books and how artists make their magic happen. I'm your host, Andrea Davis Pinkney. Thanks for joining us. Today we're celebrating creativity with Caldecott honoree Grace Lin. Grace, welcome.
Thank
I am
you.
so happy to see you. It's just a pleasure to have you here. And I have to start by asking you if you have a special room in your house or if you've built an addition onto your home for all of your awards and prizes. You have won so many. You won a Newbery honor for Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, a Geisel honor for Ling and Ting, not exactly the same. You are a National Book Award finalist for When the Sea Turned to Silver, and a Caldecott Honor Medal for A Big Mooncake for Little Star. And I must also acknowledge A Big Bed for Little Snow. I love this book. It is just warming so many hearts, including my own.
Oh, thank you.
How do you decide, Grace, what technique you're going to use when you're creating a book?
You know, that is a good question because I do write all different kinds of books, and I think that the way that I decide how I'm going to do the art, I let the story tell me. So, you know, what happens is I'll get a story idea in my head, and from there, I kind of see where it's going to fit. Sometimes the story becomes a novel. Sometimes the story becomes an early reader. Sometimes the story becomes a picture book. And that kind of dictates what kind of art style I'll use too. For example, for Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, because it's for older readers, I'll use a very intricate style. I'll use lots of patterns and a lot of details. For a book like Ling and Ting, which is an early reader, I'll use simpler shapes and simpler color palettes and a thicker line. And then for something like A Big Mooncake for Little Star and A Big Bed for Little Snow, I'll use a completely different kind of style just because that's what the story kind of dictates to me.
So there's so much versatility. It almost sounds like the stories are talking to you. They kind of come to you and tell you what they need, it seems.
It's true. I think that's true. I think they kind of come to me and then they kind of tell me what they want to be.
And how can that happen for a young person? How can we encourage children to stay creative?
That's a good question. You know, all kids are different, but I have my own child who's 7 years old. And what I found that works for our family is just giving her the space to be creative, and not just physical space, like the time to be creative. I think
kind of the mental space, the emotional space.
Because I think it's so easy these days to kind of be overscheduled and to run from class to class. And I think just giving some time and some space where she can kind of be bored and then slowly start listening to the stories that come to her, I find that that has really helped us foster her creativity.
It's almost like the inner voice makes that creativity just kind of blossom.
Yes, I think so. It's like finding that quiet so you can hear it.
Now, you are in a lot of schools, I would imagine. You visit with a lot of students. How do you help them stay creative? Do you have a lot of budding artists and, that you visit when you're out on the road?
That's true. I do visit quite a few schools. I love visiting schools, and I see quite a few students. And you know, every once in a while, I'll run into a student who'll be like, "I can't draw. I can't draw." I'm like, "I'm sure you can draw. You can draw." And like, "No, I can't draw anything." And I said, "I'll show you how you can draw a dog from the number 5. And they'll be like, "No way." So I usually teach them how to draw a dog from the number 5. Would you like me to show you?
I would love that. A dog from the number 5.
So what I do is say, this is how you draw a dog from the number 5. And I'll draw a 5. And I'll say,
looks like a basic 5 to me.
And
I don't know
they'll
how
be like,
that's
"That's
gonna
just
become a dog," but
yeah,
okay.
That's exactly what they say. They're like, "That's just a 5. That's not a dog." And I said, "Okay."
It's a pretty 5, but
yeah.
okay.
Thank you. So from that 5, I do a sideways L, and then from the sideways L, I do a nice long U, and then I do a short line here and a short line there, and I connect it, and then I'll say, "Do you see it? Do you see it?" And most of the kids will be like, "Oh, I'm starting to see it." But there's always a couple that, "No, still doesn't look like a dog to me." And I'll be like, "Okay, just hold on some more." And so then I'll start drawing the back. Then I'll just do the bottom leg like that. Then I'll do the top leg. I'll connect it, and they'll be like, now they'll be like, "Oh wait, I see it. I see the dog." And so then I
Here's
put the
that
eye in the
snout.
nose, and I let it bark. And then they said, oh, and they all said, and ask them now, do you think you can do it? And they're all like, yes, I can make a dog from the number 5. And the instructions for this is actually in my book, The Year of the Dog. So if they ever forget, I always tell them to go to that book to look it up.
And it's interesting, the back of the 5, I almost can't see the 5 now. You know, I see the dog. When you see, but you see the back of the 5, it's the snout of the dog. And The Year of the Dog is also one of my favorites. You have a lot of dragons in your books. That seems to be a theme.
Yes, I also teach, I usually teach students how to draw a dragon too, and that is super fun. And I kind of learned a lot about dragons doing all the books that I do. And when I show them how to draw a dragon, I always have to kind of give them a little background information about dragons. I always say, you know, there's a big difference between a Chinese dragon and a European dragon. European dragons are considered evil. You know, they're the ones that the Knights of the Round Table have to like kill because they're eating princesses all the time.
Those fire-breathing ones.
Yes, exactly. And Asian dragon, or a Chinese dragon is exactly the opposite. A Chinese dragon does not breathe fire, for example, and a Chinese dragon is not considered evil. They're actually considered very benevolent and very compassionate and noble, and they are an honored animal in Asian culture. So I tell them, I'm going to teach you how to draw a lucky Chinese dragon, not one of those evil European ones. So this is how you draw a lucky Chinese dragon. First, you start with the pair of eyes. Now, the thing about Chinese dragons is that there are certain things that make them Chinese or Asian. For example, all Asian dragons have to have horns. So we're going to draw some horns here. All right, so European dragons, some of them have horns, some of them don't. It's not consistent, but Asian dragons or Chinese dragons always have horns. Chinese dragons usually have eyebrows. So we'll draw some eyebrows like that. Now, Chinese dragons have snouts just like European dragons. Chinese dragons need to breathe, so we'll give him some nostrils, just like European.
Love the curly nostrils.
Yes. Now, one of the biggest differences between a European dragon and a Chinese dragon is that a Chinese dragon never has wings. That is because in Chinese culture, the dragon is kind of the king of the sky. So the clouds and the wind will take the dragon anywhere where he wants to go. So he doesn't need wings. So if you ever see a dragon with wings, you know it's one of those evil dragons. You
know it's European.
Yep. So one of those evil Europeans. But however, even though Chinese dragons never have wings, they always have mustaches.
Yes, that I remember. And why do we need wings when the clouds are taking us where we want to go?
Exactly. But you have to have that mustache so it can flow in the air.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're drawing these dragons for good luck. So because we want our dragons to give us good luck, we're going to make these happy dragons. And so to make sure it's happy, we're going to give him a big, happy, toothy grin. Because if he's not happy, if he's depressed, he'll be too depressed to bring us luck. If we make him angry, he'll bring us bad luck, right? So we want him to be happy. And since he's got a big, toothy grin, we want to give him a chin to hold up all those teeth. All right, so far, Chinese dragons have horns, eyes, snouts, mustaches. Now, Chinese dragons also have whiskers. And this is where we can decide what kind of luck we want our dragon to bring us. Because in Chinese culture, there are some lucky numbers and unlucky numbers. And the number of whiskers we put on our dragon will signify the kind of luck we want him to bring us. So for example, one lucky number is the number 6. Now, the reason why 6 is lucky is because it's a homophone in Chinese. So, you know, a homophone, like when you say the word flower, it could be like, we could be talking about a rose or a daisy, or we could be talking about the stuff that we bake with. Well, when you say 6 in Chinese, it's a homophone. You could be saying the word 6, or you could be saying a word that means smooth or straight or easy.
And how would we say that?
You would say, I have to count on my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you say 六.
六. Okay.
So that would be 6, and that would signify maybe peace or ease or ease, right? So let's say
peace and ease with the number 6. Okay.
Yeah. So like if you were going to take a test tomorrow and you wanted to be easy, you could put 6 whiskers on your dragon, and he'd bring you some ease, and he'd make the test easy for you. Another lucky number is the number 8. When you say 8 in Chinese, it's also a homophone. It sounds like the word for fortune or luck or money, actually more like money. It's like prosperity. So if you feel a little short on cash, 8 whiskers is a good...
Get some 8 energy in there,
yes,
right?
8 is a good number of whiskers to put on. Another lucky number in Chinese culture is the number 9. When you say 9 in Chinese, it sounds like the word for forever. So we use it to signify like long life or longevity. So if you're feeling sick or something, you could put 9 whiskers on and he'll give you good health so you can live a long, long life.
So those are some lucky numbers, 6, 8, 9.
Yes.
And I can choose the number of whiskers if I were to be a person drawing a dragon.
Yes. Well, we are going to have this dragon bring you luck. So which number would you like?
Oh, it's hard. I'm going to go for peace.
Okay,
I'm going to go for ease.
So we are going to go for 6 whiskers then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right.
I'm feeling peaceful. I'm feeling peaceful.
So we only have one more thing to do to finish this dragon. If you've read my book, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, you know that this dragon only came to life when his eyes were dotted in.
Yes.
So we are going to dot these dragons' eyes in, and then now you shall have a very peaceful life.
Well, you know, that pupil of the eye, that's kind of the life of anybody's eye. You can really look into somebody's eyes and see that, that is a beautiful, peaceful Chinese dragon that looks full of prosperity, long life, and fortune. So you showed us this cover. Can you talk about your painting technique? Because I love this jacket.
Oh, thank you. Yes, in fact, because I showed you how to draw that good luck dragon, I thought I would show you how I painted the dragon on the cover of this book. And because I kind of knew you were going to ask me, I prepared this little drawing on my special watercolor paper here. There's my technique to do a painting like this is a many-step process. First, obviously, I would do the drawing. But what I'd like to do today is show you the technique of how I paint something like this. So I'm going to show you the painting technique, which is how I paint this is a little different than how I paint the art for Big Moon Cake for Little Star. The way I paint the cover of this book, I use watercolor gouache, which is a very opaque paint, and
Now, what does opaque mean for our viewers? That means it's
not see-through.
It's more flat,
It's
thicker.
more flat, thicker. It's very more graphic. So that's how I'll paint this image, versus the way that I paint these books, which is a little bit more transparent, a little bit more realistic. So from here, I have this drawing, and the first step I would actually do in real life is I would do a bunch of color studies to see what color I would want the dragon to be, what color I want the background to be.
So you can study color?
Yes, it's the best part. It's the best thing to do before you start any painting is to figure out what colors you want to do. And so, but I already know what colors we want this to be because we're kind of using the cover of the book as the inspiration. So we know we want a blue background and we want a red dragon. So the first thing I would do after knowing what colors I wanted is I just kind of block the colors in. So I'll take kind of my thicker paintbrush because I'm just blocking the colors in, and then I will start just putting in the colors. So like right now we want the blue background like that. And I'm going to be not super neat with it, but neat enough because I don't want the colors to kind of overlap too much, but I'll just kind of paint it in so that we can see.
Now, if I want to paint like Grace Lin, what kind of brush am I using?
I use watercolor brushes. For this part of the painting.
And I can get that at a basic art supply store? And
I use, especially this part where I'm just blocking in the colors, I'm not too picky about the quality of the brush when I'm just blocking in the colors. I get a little bit more picky, or I get much more picky when I do the finer details. I have like a zero brush and some brushes that are even smaller than zero that I'll only use for one book, and then after that I'll throw it out because I want that tip to be perfectly zero.
And is this, you're studying now? you're kind of studying your color.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I've kind of figured out the colors that I want already at this point, but you know, that can change. So even when you paint it larger, you still kind of adjust while you're painting. So.
Now, I think what's interesting is as you paint that blue, that dragon is just coming out at us.
Yeah, and gouache is a little bit of a tricky medium because it dries a different color than when you paint it. So it's a very difficult color, a very difficult medium to kind of make corrections with. So
that's going to be a little lighter when it's dry. It's dry. Now you had done another sample for us.
Yep.
To kind of show more of the color coming in.
Yes.
And I guess that the other sample that you brought is dry.
Yes.
So we can get to see how that's going to look.
You could see. So I would just block in all this color and make it blue for the background and red, and then you'll see from there. We'd have this. So it's all blocked in. It's, like I said, it's not super neat or anything like that, but but this is just kind of like throwing the colors down so I can see where it's going to go.
And you can really see that little bit of drying, that blue is just, it's just so, it's luminescent.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And so from this stage, from here, this is actually the stage that takes the most time because this is where I start putting the details in. I'm putting in different colors to give it more depth. So like one of the first things I would do is I would look at this and I would put in some deeper colors to give it more depth. Of course, I was saying that this style that I'm working on now is more graphic than the styles that I use for a big mooncake for a little star, but I still wanted to have a little bit of depth to it. It's not completely flat. So I'll go in and kind of like give it kind of a little bit of depth and shadows here and there, just so it looks a little bit more realistic. I'm not sure if that's quite true.
Know, it almost looks like that lucky dragon is kind of talking to you, Grace, like your hand is being guided by this lucky number 6 dragon.
And so, and this is also where I would put in the patterns that I love to do so much. You know, this is where I would start putting in the swirls in the background. I tend to do a lot of swirls in my art. You'll see I'll put a lot of swirls in the background here.
Because there's quite a bit of detail in the final
Yes, it's
product.
all the details. So I would start putting the swirls in now. After I gave the dragon a little bit more depth, I would start putting the swirls in, and then I would put the details of the scales and start kind of doing all those things to make it kind of, this is where, I guess, to me, this is where the magic happens, right? And so...
No, I think what's interesting is the swirls almost look like the swirls of the whiskers of the dragon that you made with your Sharpie marker there.
It is. The thing about the swirls is that they are a lucky Chinese symbol, actually. Back in ancient China, before they had Chinese writing, the way that they would write the word cloud, like before they had a real Chinese language, would be by drawing a swirl. However, after the Chinese had their own written language, they didn't need a swirl to mean cloud anymore. But because a swirl used to mean cloud, it still kind of retained its luckiness. So that's why a swirl is a lucky symbol in Chinese culture still. You see them use swirls a lot in their Chinese folk art and all over their clothings and things like that because it's still considered lucky.
And it's just beautiful. And I noticed that, you know, as you kind of fill in the swirls, there's almost an emotional quality. Like, I am feeling this dragon. I am really feeling this dragon.
Well, I really love putting all the patterns in because I feel like it really adds so much depth, putting layer upon layer. I think one of the things students often ask me about my novels is, why do you put so many stories in your novels? And I tell them it's really because of the way I paint and do my art. I love putting layers upon layers of things. I feel like it gives more depth, it gives more of the backstory. So I have to do that with my writing as well.
And that's the beauty of reading your books. We can read them over and over and always find something new. Now, Grace, I know just like a cooking show, you've prepared something that's the next step
yes, because
in this process.
This would take this is the
right, how long does that take? How long does a full painting?
This size, the full painting this size, probably would take me half a day. So from there, or maybe a full day, depending on how intricate I want to get with the details. So this is where I would go from there.
Oh, that's beautiful. Look at all the swirls on that.
Yes.
Wow. And the scales are coming in now?
This is where the scales would come in. I would add all the details. So you can see I have a lot of the depth of the scales. It's a little bit darker in certain areas because that's where I want certain areas to pop out. So in all the details of the clouds, this is kind of close to where the end is. After I finished all of these scales and maybe put a little bit more depth, I would probably go to the last step. And the last step is adding kind of like the black outline. That's kind of what I kind of save for the end, because I feel like that's what gives the final pop of the whatever I'm drawing, in this case the dragon. And that's when I would use my zero brush, the brush with my finest point. And I would just because I don't want it to be depending on the art. For something like this, I would want it to be very fine.
Now you're saying it's a zero brush, but it's far from zero. I mean, it's really, really defining that dragon.
Yeah. And so I would want this to just see how it kind of gives it a little pop.
It's that final bit.
Yes.
Although I do see something that's missing from your dragon.
The last thing that I would do for this dragon is I would dot in that eye and give it that eye so it came alive. Would you like to do the last finishing touch?
Oh my gosh, of course. Okay, I'm going to bring this dragon to life.
Yes.
With the dot of the eye. How's that?
Beautiful.
Oh, what a difference.
That's great.
What a difference a dot makes in a beautiful Chinese dragon. Now, how do you say great in Chinese?
In Chinese, I think we would say Heng Hao, which means very good.
Heng Hao?
Yes.
So that is a Heng Hao dragon.
I would say, you did a very good job. It'd be like Heng Hao.
Heng Hao. I love that. I love that. So Grace, again, you do go to so many schools. I'm sure that you get a lot of questions from students.
Many questions.
And I have a question for you. What is your favorite food? What is the favorite food of Grace Lin?
My favorite food, hands down, is dumplings. Especially.
How did I know that? Of course.
Especially soup dumplings. I actually went out to eat last night, and we had to wait an hour and a half to get these soup dumplings, but it was worth every moment.
Oh my God. We'll talk later. I've got to get the name of that restaurant. Do you have a pet?
I have 5 pets, actually. I have 5 chickens.
5 chickens? Wait a minute. You have 5 chickens. Where do these chickens live? Chickens in your living room, or?
I live in Western Massachusetts, which has a lot. So we have a fairly large backyard, which is something you couldn't say here in New York City. And we have a chicken run and a chicken coop, and it's all set up in the backyard. I actually even have a open air / treehouse studio above the chicken coop, so I can draw the chickens in my free time.
Oh, do your chickens eat dumplings?
No, they do not eat dumplings, though they could.
They could.
But we don't have any dumplings to give them. We eat them all.
What animal year were you born in?
I was born in the year of the tiger. So that means that I am very independent.
This is true.
I am very brave.
You are brave, Grace Lin.
However, I am not a good planner.
Well, maybe you can be a brave, strong a planner when you're born in another year,
I like to say I'm spontaneous.
Spontaneous. There you go. So, Grace, thank you so much for being a guest here and inspiring us to be fearlessly creative. Use the hashtag #TheBigPictureLive to share your art with us. We'll see you next time on The Big Picture Live. Grace, how do we say goodbye in Chinese?
We say 再见.
再见. Thanks for being with us. Goodbye, everybody.